Today, we're here to celebrate the publication, Total Energy Intake and Implications for Epidemiologic Analysis by Drs. Walter Willett and Mayer Stamper. I'm here today with Dr. Willett on behalf of the authorship team. Dr. Willett is Professor of Epidemiology and Nutrition at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. And we're celebrating this paper as one of the American Journal of Epidemiology's most influential papers in the last 100 years. Dr. Willett, thanks for being with us today.
Well, thank you. And it's really wonderful to be part of this celebration for a great journal.
So one of the things that I really appreciated in reading this paper is that you really did your due diligence to make these arguments and taking the time to explore the opportunities and challenges of each alternative that had been offered to caloric intake measures, which is the major contribution and thrust of this paper. But in your opinion, what do you think made this paper so successful?
Well, I think it was successful because it integrated biological understanding, a lot of other information, along with statistical modeling and epidemiologic approaches. I think if we had just one of those elements, it wouldn't have been a strong paper. But I think that's what really good epidemiology is all about. And I'd like to think that this provides a good example of that. At the time I was thinking about this work, this was back in the early 1980s, there was a lot of appreciation that diet might be related to cardiovascular disease, but almost the whole focus was on saturated fat and cholesterol. But there were almost no studies that had actually looked directly at diet and future risk of coronary heart disease, just a few small studies. There was also great interest in diet and cancer, but just a few case control studies were available at that time. So we had started collecting data on diet in the Nurses' Health Study in 1980. We documented that this had reasonable validity, but it was going to be several years of waiting before we had enough outcomes to look at diet and health outcomes. And that gave us some time to think about how we would conduct our analyses. And that was really the origin of thinking about how we would analyze our data, how we would control for total energy intake.
If you were to redo this paper today, what do you think would be the same? What might you change?
One area that we have extended this a bit is looking at weight change itself, where you don't want to control for total energy. I think it's one of the probably few examples where you actually wouldn't want to control for total energy. So how do you look at composition of diet while not controlling for total energy? And we've looked at this in lots of ways, but it has a fairly simple answer, and that is to use nutrient density, but not control for total energy intake. And that, I think, works pretty well. So I would have added that nuance on it. I covered that in the update of my textbook, but I would, if I were redoing the article, I would add that in.
This paper now, as of this year, it's the 35th anniversary of this paper. What do you feel like is the biggest thing that we can still take away from this paper today?
The basic message, in fact, just this week, I was talking to a very eminent statistician who was ambivalent about whether you should adjust or not adjust for total energy intake in the model. And we showed that this makes a huge difference. In an example in the paper, we showed it can change the direction of association for saturated fat and coronary heart disease. So it's a big issue. It's not just a theoretical issue. So I think there's still people who are working in this field or entering this field that really need to understand, or in most situations, we do need to adjust for total energy and understand why and how to do it. But again, I think there is the fundamental message that it's really important to think deeply about the question we're asking, about the biology that's related to that question, and then we find a statistical model that fits our question and will provide an informative answer.
Today, would you have actually still submitted this paper to AJE, or would you have submitted it to a nutritional journal or some specialty journal?
If I were submitting this today, I would still submit it to AJE. I think it is the best place to put papers that are more methodologic, that people will, I think most of us still look at AJE and subscribe to AJE, people from different fields. So I think it is the right place. These are, in some ways, the most important articles that we publish because they do influence how we do our analyses and other people do our analyses and advance the field.
Congratulations again. This paper has been cited nearly 3,000 times, which is an incredible honor. And we at American Journal of Epidemiology thank you for this contribution that you made that still has lasting impact on the field and what we do as epidemiologists. So congratulations and thank you.
Well, thank you and happy birthday to the journal.